Hello, this is David White with AutoGate Electric. I'm going to do a tutorial on the Axxon Next version 4 platform from AxxonSoft. I'm going to log into the main user interface here using the admin credential. Every user will have their own username and password. So my layout as an admin gives me full feature functionality to all of the different items in this software. You may or may not have all of these different features accessible to you depending on your access levels. So the user interface I want to point out is a little bit different than a lot of other platforms we've used in the past. It's kind of optimized for touchscreen. It uses the borders of the platform and the screens for different functions and features. That's something I want to point out right off the bat as you get familiar with the system, because when you're looking for a function or a feature or how to do something, it may be right around one of the edges or the top, the bottom, or the left of the frame of the camera that you're in. So we're going to start here really quickly and show you what I mean by that. The top here, you have a quick search bar. You can literally just search for a name of one of your cameras and it'll show up here in the search bar. If you have a larger system, that's extremely helpful. Here you have a monitor layout. If you have several monitors, you can configure different views for those monitors and do an entire video wall for those. Across the top, depending on how big your screen is, you'll have different layouts that have been set up for your system or ones that are accessible to you. And there's a little drop down menu here to show you more. These are display tile functions. We're going to come back to those. Some forensic search capabilities. The settings tab, again, most people won't have access to. On the right here, you'll notice it says archive, and this is a tab here that if I click on the archive tab, it will bump out and start showing a timeline of recordings. We're going to come back to that as well. On the bottom you have interactive maps, which we're not going to get into during this tutorial too much, but it is down here on the bottom. And on the left hand side we have a tab here called objects, and objects will show you all the different servers and cameras within the system and the object, and you can go through this to find a specific camera pretty easy, just like on the search function or the search field. Just a different way of accessing those things. As you build layouts and things, you'll use this objects tab more frequently than you would generally on your daily use of the system. I want to go back to these display tile options up here on the top right. You have three different options. One shows kind of all the grid layout, which is the current view now. When I click on a camera, you'll notice that camera gets a few different control options, and it defines the camera that I'm looking at. All the other cameras stay the same where they're at. You get a few different options here. But as I change these tile options, my display options change a little bit as well. So this is a grid that shows all of the cameras all at once. Even if I click on one camera, it doesn't do much except for change the grid around and give me more options. When I use this middle icon here, you'll see that it brings one camera into focus and the other cameras are kind of on the outskirts. But when I click on a camera, it jumps straight to that camera, and you can just kind of move around your layout this way depending on what you're looking at. It's helpful when you can group different cameras together so that you can navigate a little bit easier and jump from one camera to another. But if I'm on one camera and I use this third icon here, this will give me a full screen layout for that particular camera. Now I'm going to grab another camera on this layout here really quick and just point out one thing. As we get into the actual camera settings and functionality of it, on the top here you can click the camera name. Now there's two different ways that this can display. You can have this over the image, or we can go into the settings, and this is something that an administrator would have to do for you. And you'll see that now instead of those buttons on top, you have the name of the camera here on top. Just kind of expands the border a little bit, gives you date and time. I don't like this as much because it's a little hidden. You may prefer it. If you do prefer it, you can ask to have that turned back on by an administrator of the system. They still function the same, but they're a little bit hidden. So as a new user, I recommend keeping this setting on for allowing controls on top of the video image, and it just gives you a little bit more functionality, and it's easier to notice that those are part of your feature there. Now here on this camera, I'm not going to get into too many of these features, but I will show you. You'll notice that there's a yellow border or an orange border around this camera. It's because the camera is armed and recording. If I hit the disarm button here, I can actually disarm the camera, and it will not record anything if there's something there in the way. It also changes status if you have an alarm. I've just given it a manual alarm down here at the bottom. We're not going to go over that too much today, but I just want to show you what happens when you see different colors around each of these cameras, what that means. Same thing here. If I go over here on the right, you'll notice the current time. There's no active recordings right now, and that's why this little R right here is grayed out. But if somebody walks through that door, that R will actually turn red. And if I click on this time, it does I guess a freeze frame, you could call it, and it puts a blue frame around the camera. My camera stopped counting here. You can see the image is a frozen image, even though down here at the bottom it still has the current time showing. We're going to go back to a layout. Here we have somebody here in the field of view. It is recording right now, and that R has turned red. We're going to go back to another layout where I've got several cameras here, so we can take a look at this one. So we're going to go back into this camera, and again you'll notice that around the border you have a lot of different things going on. On the top left here you have the name of the camera and the ID number of it. I'm going to get into a few things here and not everything, but I'm going to show you the tracking setting if you want to see what the camera is actually seeing. If you see this R showing up on a regular basis, it may be because the sensitivity is too high. Maybe it needs to be adjusted. So you can see all of these squares and tracking components that the system in the background is doing. This is really a diagnostics tool for most of the installers. If you want to see what the camera is looking at, that's okay. It's there for you to use. And you can just go back in here and hide that tracking when you're done. On the right hand side, you'll notice the current time. This time is it has a few different functions when you get into the recording mode. We're going to come back to this blue download button here. You'll also notice a plus and minus button. When I hit the minus button, obviously it minimizes my screen. When I hit the plus, it makes that viewing tile a little bit bigger, and that's a way that you can go in and zoom in and out of your photo. You can also zoom in and out of the photo by obviously using your scroll wheel on your mouse and moving around the image and zooming back out. Another way, you could actually click and draw a box around a area that you want to zoom into, and when you let go of your mouse, it will take you directly to that area as well, kind of a digital pan tilt zoom feature. So down on the bottom you'll notice two more icons. Most users are going to use this system in one of three ways, maybe a combination of those three ways. Obviously, as a front desk viewer, they're going to be using the live view, which is what we're currently in. And the three different views or uses of this system are live view, archive mode, and a forensic search, which really gives into a lot of advanced features for the forensic search mode. We're not going to get into that mode today, but these two icons down here in the bottom, which are interchangeable. So right now I'm in live mode. If I want to go into archive mode, I can click on this button right here, and I want you to remember these icons because they're very universal throughout the system. When I clicked on that archive mode, let's just do that again. You'll notice it looks like a little recorder or tape recorder. I'm sorry, it's a remote connection, so it's a little blurry here. But when you click on that archive mode, your archive panel bumps out, and you'll see a timeline here on the archive panel. And you can go in and see where a lot of the recordings are on that archive panel. When I click on the forensic mode, it's going to take me into another forensic mode screen that gives me a lot more options, but I just want you to notice how these have changed. It gives me the option to go back into the archive mode, or it gives me the option to go back into the live view mode. So I'm going to go back into the live view mode, go back to this camera. You can go into archive mode, and it will show you a timeline of where the events are. Now it's going to take you to the last event that you searched for. Sometimes that's not convenient. Let's say yesterday was the last time you used the system. It would go back to yesterday, and that's not where you're looking for the event. Generally, you have a new event that you're looking for. You want to go back in and find a recent event. To find a recent event, make sure you go back into live view mode. And again, this is kind of touch optimized, but you can do the same thing with the mouse. You're going to see this bottom scrolling bar. It's showing your current time, and it's showing little moments of things that it's recorded. It must have picked up a shadow or something that it's recorded. If you grab this bar, click it, and grab it and drag it just an inch or so and let go. What that's going to do is it's going to go into playback mode or your archive mode, and it's going to take you to the more current archive. Now it's showing us 10:07 a.m. The current time right now is 10:07 a.m. and I can go back to that shadow that we just saw, and these little bars look very similar to what we just saw on the screen, right? We could pull out an event that had just happened very quickly this way, and be able to get to something that we just saw very quickly. Now let's use these controls here. This is obviously the previous event. As I click this, it's just going back event by event, the beginning of that event. If we click back far enough, it'll get us to something hopefully other than shadows and a car or something, person driving by. This tab here is go to previous frame, and it'll just kind of skip frame by frame by frame. You see these trees moving here as I click it. Now if I hold it, press down and hold it, it's like a rewind button. It's a manual rewind button, and you can go to a point where you want to go to and let go, and maybe I want to go back a little bit more. Just press down on that button and it'll keep rewinding your frame. The same thing here. If I went back a little too far, I can go forward a frame, or I could press and hold that down and it will fast forward slowly, kind of frame by frame. Same thing here. This will give you a quick jump to the next video or the next trigger that had a trigger. Now let's take a look at our timeline, because what we've done is looked at the little bars, the yellow and gray bars down here, which show us this is an active person or object that it's noticed. The gray is maybe a pre-recording and a post-recording after an event was triggered. And on here you'll notice similar functionalities. We have gray and blue, and you may have red for different alarms, or green for face and things like that, as the system gets more and more detailed with the different functions that you actually use with it. And this timeline bar lets you see at a glance where your events have been. I'm going to choose a different camera because that is a heavy shadow camera. Lots of shadows on that camera. We're going to choose this one here. Again, we're going to go into the archive mode. Now again, because we were just at 10:02 when we were on that last camera, I'm able to quickly grab this camera, go into archive mode, and have it take me to that location. The timeline, now on the right hand side you'll see that this is in 20-second increments here. I can scroll in and it'll give me 10 seconds, 5 seconds, down to the second here, and if I grab this blue bar, I can drag it, and it just kind of takes me up by the second and shows me where my events are if I want to get really granular to what's going on. Now if I hover my mouse over this blue timeline here with the times and I scroll out, it'll take my timeline and start shrinking it. And this will allow me to see, 5 minutes at a time, 10 minutes at a time, 30 minutes, until I get to the hours, and I start getting into day. I can see a complete day here with different shades showing me. It says daytime and nighttime. It's not accurate. It shows 6 a.m. in the morning to 6 p.m. at night. But it is nice to know, okay, what am I looking for? I know that 12 o'clock here, this is midnight. I can go back and see if I have any midnight events, and to do that I just click on a point here within the timeline, and it'll take me to that midnight event. If I continue zooming out, I can get days here at the same time. You can look here at your bar. It tells you the exact same time and day that it's pointing at. I can click up here, it'll change that date and time, go to the most recent event that it had based on where I clicked. And if I keep on scrolling out, you can get into days. See, here's 7/22, 7/18, 7/16, 7/14, and it gets into weeks and months, and it'll actually show, and I'm not going to scroll all the way out, but it'll show an entire year timeline for these cameras on this system. Depending on how much storage space you have, it may actually have some information or metadata or something that's stored from the camera recording all the way back. So that is the archive functionality in the archive panel. I want to go back here and play this video, and something you should be able to see here is some of your buttons change. Your play changes to a pause, so you can pause it, but you can actually slow this down or speed it up. And by speeding it up, and it's not going to look too great on this remote connection, but by speeding it up you can go through a lot of footage fairly quick and get to what you need to get to this way. So also on this archive panel, you'll notice you have another set of controls. This set of controls is generally used when you have multiple cameras selected for archive. You'll see I have a lot of space here. On this archive bar, I have camera number 13. Now all the way here on the top, you'll notice it says 13, and that camera number 13 is associated with this 13 period door 5000. Now if I zoom out of this, now that camera's still in kind of a freeze frame mode from the archive. I still have my archives here, but let me grab another camera, and you'll see this is still in live view. When I click on the archive mode tab, what's going to happen is it's going to say, okay, this is 15 circle 5000, and it's going to take that identifier 15 and put it here in the timeline and add its timeline to my current view. Now let's say I know what I'm looking for and I want to go directly to a date and time, and I can click on this timeline bar and go to a particular date. So we're going to go to today, and it will automatically jump to that day and time. Let's say 9:07, and it's going to take me to those date and times that are on here. And again, if I want to hit this, I've got two cameras close together. Okay, we'll go to the next event here. Go into this camera. And we can actually use the player controls to speed up the playback. So now we have +1, +2 times, +4 times, and it goes up to 32 times. I'm not going to do it because we're on a remote connection, and it'll just skip around a bunch, but we'll bring that back down to 1 time here. You can also do the same in the video here. If you hit the plus and minus icon here, then those plus and icons will also speed up or slow down your playback with the system there as well. Now, again, because I'm in a timeline and I have 2 cameras here showing, you'll see, I'm going to zoom into this timeline a little bit more. I'm going to zoom into this timeline bar a little bit so I can zoom in and see when the activity starts and stops. You see this gentleman here getting out of his truck. I can now go down to this camera here where he's walking to this door, which is below that. Looks like he forgot something, so he's turning back around. I can change my tiles a little bit so I can go back and forth between my cameras. Here you'll see he is going back to his truck to get something. By clicking on the gray part here on any of these layouts as well, it'll give you a kind of a zoomed out view. Now I can pause this and stop the recorded view, and I can manipulate the video a little bit. I can zoom in, use your pan tilt zoom if I want to get a little bit more details. Sometimes you can maybe want to see what company this gentleman's from, zoom into his shirt, find out what his logo on his shirt says, those types of things. And if I play it here, it'll start playback again. Now let's say I want to find out when this gentleman actually leaves the building. It's probably pretty safe to say that this door, if he leaves, let's see who the next person leaving this building is. We can just click down here onto the next timeline bar this way, or we can go back over here to this camera, and as it's playing, it'll automatically just jump to that location. But because we have 2 cameras playing at the exact same time, it would go back to the other camera and play its recordings. So this gentleman here was in the building. He's leaving the building. Looks like 9:01, 40 seconds now, and he entered the building about 8:54. So he was in there just about 6 or 7 minutes. Looks like he was getting a tool or something. And you can go in and play with the system on events like that so that you can get familiar with the system and how to use it. Now let's say we want to actually view the recordings from all cameras at the exact same time. Remember I said to get familiar with these 3 icon sets. They are fairly universal throughout the system. You have your archive search mode, but we're going to call that forensic search because it's an advanced search. Your archive mode icon here, you'll notice it's also here right on your archive tab, and when you click the archive icon on the archive tab, what it's going to do is actually take all of the cameras on this particular layout and bring each of the timelines in. So you have your camera ID numbers here, 2, 5, 7, 13, and 5. You've got 2, 5, garage 7, 13 and 5 here, and that's how you know which camera you're looking at as you use the system and navigate your way through it. Now if you want to maybe delete cameras or not show cameras on this, you can also go into that camera and say, okay, you know what, we don't need that one on there anymore, we're going to put that one back in live view, and it just takes it out of the timeline here so that you can get a little bit more granular on the cameras that you actually want to look at, especially a camera that has a lot of noise and false triggerings. Maybe we want it to be a little bit more sensitive so that it gets things in the background and doesn't miss those types of things, which is what that camera is set up for. You know, you might not need that for what you're looking for, so to help you get through the recordings a little bit easier, that might be something that you can do. And when you get back and you're done with your recordings, you can, well, let's do this too. You could hit play and it'll go through each of these. Obviously there's a recording here in the parking garage, and as it plays, it'll go into each one of these cameras and play its recording that it has in the archive. Now when I'm done with recordings, I want to go back to live view. I could use this live view icon again, and it'll hide my archive panel and go back into live view. Let's go back into this camera. I want to show you how to export an event. Now let's say there are a range of events that we wanted to look at. A range of events, there's a few different ways of selecting a range of events. So here you have some brackets. This is the beginning range bracket. You'll notice it just grayed out this entire area over here. And we can grab this timeline bar and drag it and go to the events that I want. Let's say we want to export the times of this gentleman entering and exiting the building. We can use this timeline bar again just to kind of scroll through here. Again, it's very user friendly as far as touchscreen goes. And when we get to the recording of the gentleman leaving, we can now stop the video here on this marker and hit the end bracket, and that will highlight this range of events. Okay, this actually ended up going to this next event here, so we're going to back it up just a little bit and hit that end bracket again, and there you go, it just takes that smaller range. So that's one way of selecting a range for your recordings. Another quick, easy way of doing it, I'm going to go ahead and close this out, and that's going to clear that range, is if you're hovering here in this timeline area and you right click on your mouse, you can actually right click and drag up or down, and you can select a range this way, and I find this probably to be the fastest way of selecting a range, and it'll give you the exact same range. It actually goes in here and you'll see that it's now highlighted again, even though I cleared that out on the last one. Now you'll notice you have the blue download button. That's the export, one of the export tools. You can export video a few different ways in the system, but we can export this area here. Let's go back so I have a few different examples to show you. You can actually go and click on the download area, which is the export tool, and it shows you a few different things. It'll show you where your file location is going to be. If you have a very large amount of data that you need to export, for example, you want to send that to a network attached storage device or something else so that it goes straight there and you don't have to transfer it and copy it and move it. That's something that could be useful for there. But you have a range, which is the same range that we highlighted over here to the right, and your file type. Your file types are neat because let's say you just want to take a snapshot. By choosing the JPEG format, you can click on export and it'll just take a snapshot on that view, and I'm going to show you that later. But if I show you, go back into the export tools, I want to go back in here. You can also do PDF, and that'll create a PDF, and you can add notes, contractor, and export that PDF, and you've got kind of a snapshot export PDF of that. Select AVI, and that's going to create a video of this camera, and again we can give it a comment and export that. And as you'll notice, as I've been exporting these different items, the top bar here has a few things going on. You'll notice statuses pop up on the system every now and then. Let's say maybe a camera becomes disconnected from the system, or a configuration file is saved and it just wants to make you aware of that. It'll give you this status bar up on top, and it'll be different colors, red if it's an alert, and whatnot. And you have some arrows here to choose from. This says I have 3 of 3 things here, and they just kind of stack on top of each other. This is telling me that the export process that I just did for the Door 5000 at that time, looks like 8 minutes and 4 seconds worth of time. It's an AVI file. That's 3 of 3. I can go to the last one. This is the PDF that I did, and here is the JPEG. Now I can go in and actually open that folder directly from within the platform, and it'll highlight that, and when I double click on it, it'll just open it up into the Windows native program. You can select whatever program you want it to open into, and then obviously I can use this photo to zoom in and save that or copy that or email that if I need to. I also have, I'm going to close that. Let's go to the PDF that we created, and this is going to ask us what program we want to use. Okay, it pulls right into Adobe. Here's our comments. You can change the font and things like that if we need to. But what it does is create just a JPEG snapshot with the date, time, the snapshot that you wanted, and whatever notes that you wanted maybe to pass on. Let's say you ban a member from your property, and you want to have notes on that ban and a photo of that person. This would be a good way of doing that. And again, we can come in, look at the AVI file, open the folder, and this will be an AVI file. You can play this in whatever video player that you have native to Windows. Axxon does offer their own native video player, which is really nice. Gets into a little bit more advanced stuff with the actual export footage that you could use, and to use that you would actually go back into the export field here and export it as an exe, and it'll actually compile that player into the recording, so that if you have an event that you need to get the police, it'll compile the entire thing for you, so you don't have to give them different video players and things like that. It's a neat little tool. Now on the top here, if I want to get rid of these, I can just hit the X. If I hit this X, they'll all go away. If I hit this X here, the one that I'm on will go away. Hit that X and that whole status icon will go away. You also have a few extra export tools here. You can mask an area, so you can actually select an area. Let's say you don't want to see, for whatever reason, this area here, and then when you do an export, this grayed out shaded area will just be black during your export, and it won't be viewable. If you have some private information you didn't want to send the police when you exported the video, but there was stuff in there that they needed, that's a way that you could actually mask an area and give them what they are asking for. If you wanted to export just a particular area, you could click on this icon and move this square around. Go to the area you want to export. Go here, maybe do a JPEG, and what that will do is just JPEG. I'll show you when it's done what that looks like. It'll take a JPEG photo of just that highlighted area that you had in that square there. Okay. Next, I want to show you the fisheye dewarping feature. When you select a fisheye camera, I know this one doesn't look fisheye, it actually shows as a normal view because the way that we want it to display on the actual layout. But if I use my scroll wheel to zoom out, I'm going to go and get full screen here. It's neat how Axxon does their fisheye dewarping, because as you zoom in, it's almost like you're looking around the corner. Just one little click, and it takes you and flattens that entire round image out so that you get a little bit better detail instead of zooming into the actual native round image. Let's see, just zooming into this gentleman here with the door. You can also use pinch to zoom with your fingers if you have a touchscreen enabled device or a touchscreen monitor. And the fisheye feature is really neat within this platform with robotics cameras, with other fisheye type cameras, just as far as being able to see more detail in what you're looking for and what you're trying to gather. Well, there you have it. There's an overview of the basic features for the Axxon Next version 4 platform. There are so many more things that we did not get into, and it was intentional to make sure that you're familiar with the core features that it has, get familiar with the system. It's a very easy system to use once you see where the icons are and how to use it. It takes a little bit of time with the system to kind of get over that learning curve. I think between hopefully with this video and spending maybe 10 to 20 minutes using the system as the video shows you, trying a few different things out as you're watching the video, you should be able to pick up on these quick little tips really quick and easy. We didn't get into the forensic search or the map mode, a lot more exporting tools that we can look at. There's a lot there into the system that I just want to make sure that you're familiar with it first before we move on to a lot of the advanced features. And we don't want anybody to feel overwhelmed with the system before they dive right into it. We want to take pieces, get them up to speed very quickly with those bits and pieces so that they're familiar with the system. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. Again, this is Dave White with AutoGate Electric. Thanks for watching.